World News program coming to you live from Algiers with me, Miriam Zian, to the headlines. In parallel with horrific massacres carried out in the Strip, or the Gaza Strip, on the 711th day of the war of extermination, Israeli forces launch a large-scale ground assault on Gaza City. Hamas condemns the escalation, calling it a new chapter of genocide and ethnic cleansing, while international voices demand an immediate end to the massacre. Coming up next, at an emergency session of the UN Human Rights Council, the United Nations described the Israeli attack on Qatar as a shocking violation of international law. The Arab group stressed that this blatant assault is a heinous crime that history will record, and called for an end to Israeli violations. Also tonight in Morocco, warnings grow over the expanding crackdown by the Makhzen on rights and freedoms. Calls mount to safeguard freedom of opinion and expression, to firmly combat corruption, and for mass protests against worsening social conditions. And Poland announces it has shot down a drone flying over government facilities in Warsaw. Moscow expresses hope for new talks with Washington, and the U.S. Secretary of State says President Trump is doing everything possible to end the war. Hello and welcome back to the details of your nightly news. First, the Israeli occupation authorities announced on Tuesday the launch of its long-threatened ground operation in Gaza City, according to Reuters. An Israeli military official said forces had begun the main phase of the assault after ordering hundreds of thousands of residents to evacuate. Local sources reported that bombardment on the city has sharply intensified over the past 2 days, with heavier explosions destroying dozens of homes as naval vessels joined tanks and aircraft in shelling coastal areas. The Islamic resistance movement Hamas said that Israel's expansion of its terrorist military operations against the Palestinian people in Gaza City is nothing but a new chapter in the ongoing war of genocide and systematic ethnic cleansing against Palestinians in Gaza, deepening the humanitarian catastrophe in the Strip. In a statement issued Tuesday, Hamas stressed that Israeli crimes, which have violated every international law and norm, are being carried out under open political and military cover from the U.S. administration, holding it fully responsible for the consequences of this aggression.
The criminal Zionist occupation's expansion of its terrorist military operations against our people in Gaza City and the unprecedented barbaric Zionist escalation witnessed in the city, coinciding with the announcement by war criminal Netanyahu and his fascist government of a large-scale military operation in the city. This is nothing but a new chapter in the systematic war of genocide and ethnic cleansing against our people in Gaza, and a deepening of the humanitarian catastrophe in the Strip. We call on the international community to take responsible and decisive decisions and positions that are commensurate with the scale of these massacres, and to compel the Zionist occupation to end this war and lift the siege on Gaza.
And Hamas also said that U.S. President Donald Trump's remarks on Israel's assault on Gaza City show blatant alignment with Israeli propaganda. The movement stated that Washington is aware that Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is working to block any agreement that could secure the release of captives and end the war on Gaza, citing as evidence the attack on Qatar and an attempt to assassinate Hamas leaders during talks on Trump's latest proposal. Hamas added that the fate of Israeli captives in Gaza rests with Netanyahu's government, warning that the ongoing destruction and genocidal campaign in Gaza City also endangers their lives. And UN High Commissioner for Human Rights Volker Turk called on Israel to immediately halt its ground assault on Gaza City, stressing that mounting evidence points to the commission of war crimes and crimes against humanity. Turkey expressed deep concern over the attacks and their consequences, particularly for women and children, underscoring the urgent need to put an end to this further escalation, which he described as utterly unacceptable.
It's absolutely clear that this carnage must stop, and it has to stop at once. I can only think of what it means for women, for malnourished children, for people with disabilities if they are again attacked in this way. And I have to say the only response to this is stop the carnage. It's also important. The whole world screams for peace. Palestinians, Israelis scream for peace. Everyone wants an end to this. And what we see is a further escalation which is totally and utterly unacceptable.
And with the start of Israel's ground assault on Gaza City, the largest urban center in the devastated Strip, forced displacement toward the south has surged as residents search for safety. The United Nations has warned there are no secure places left for those fleeing a war, extermination that has raged for nearly 2 years. Usama Ayadi with the details.
Displaced into the unknown. This is the situation that Palestinians endure every day in the Gaza Strip. With the start of the Zionist ground assault on the city, waves of people were forced to head to the opposite direction. Thousands carrying their children and their simple belongings wander aimlessly toward the areas south of the already devastated Strip.
We did not sleep at night, and this is everything I own. This is all I have. I lived with this. Today, I came walking from 6 o'clock, and here I am walking, heading to the unknown. I swear, we do not know where to go to. We are going to the unknown. We left from heavy bombardment in the Gaza Strip, all day and night long. They destroyed a lot of towers.
The numbers speak of a horrific humanitarian tragedy. 350,000 people forcibly displaced in a period as short as few days.
My message is to have mercy on us. Have mercy on us. Today, there is an Arab summit in Doha. Look at us mercifully. We are people who are being exterminated. Here, there is a genocide in the Gaza Strip. I swear, a genocide in the Gaza Strip. Look at the people. Look at the people. Those who have been walking since dawn. Some people slept in the streets because of the intensity of the strikes.
The displaced themselves are wondering in which direction they should flee, as fire and air bombing have left no stone unturned. The United Nations warns there are no safe places in the Gaza Strip, and the south, to which thousands are being pushed, is not immune to bombing and destruction.
I'm from Al Jala area. There is no transportation. I do not want to leave Gaza. I do not want to leave my home. I want to sit in my house. We cannot but flee. We will spend our life fleeing. We are always displaced. Displacement is our destiny.
The war, which has been ongoing for nearly 2 years, is pushing hundreds of thousands toward the unknown fate. In Gaza today, survival does not mean reaching safety, but rather a temporary escape from one hell to another one that may be less intense than the previous ones.
The government media office in Gaza said Tuesday that more than 1 million Palestinians refused to be forcibly displaced southward, while nearly 2 million are suffering under Israeli displacement plans. It stressed that residents of Gaza City and the northern areas remain rooted in their land and homes despite relentless bombardment and what it described as an ongoing genocide by the occupation.
The government media office confirms that more than 1 million Palestinians remain deeply rooted in Gaza City and its northern areas, holding firmly to their land and homes, and categorically refusing to be displaced southward. This is despite the brutality of the bombardment and the ongoing genocide being perpetrated by the Israeli occupation as part of the execution of the crime of forced displacement, which is in violation of all international laws and conventions.
And since dawn on Tuesday, more than 106 Palestinians have been killed and others wounded by Israeli gunfire and bombardment targeting various areas across the Gaza Strip. Local sources reported that Israeli airstrikes left more than 106 people dead and dozens injured amid heavy and continuous Israeli shelling of the Strip. And at least 68 Palestinians were killed and others wounded as Israeli forces targeted civilians in different parts of Gaza City. Medical sources in Gaza hospitals said 68 Palestinians were killed as Israel intensified its bombardment of homes and neighborhoods in the city. They added that more than 14 bodies were brought to a Shifa medical complex, while dozens remain trapped under the rubble. The United Nations Commission of Inquiry reported that Israeli officials incited genocide against Palestinians in the Gaza Strip. According to Reuters, the report holds Israel responsible for pursuing the eradication of the Palestinian people, citing mass killings, obstruction of aid, forced displacement, and the destruction of a fertility center. And UN Special Rapporteur Francesca Albanese warned that Israel is seeking to make Gaza City uninhabitable through its assault on the Strip's largest urban area. Speaking to the press in Geneva, Albanese said that Israel is bombarding Gaza with unconventional weapons and attempting to forcibly displace Palestinians, adding this is the last piece of Gaza they want to render unlivable. The UN Relief and Works Agency for Palestine Refugees UNRWA said there is no safe place or shelter left for Gaza's residents, urging immediate action to secure a ceasefire in the Strip. UNRWA Commissioner General Philippe Lazzarini explained that Israel is carrying out a campaign of destroying high-rise buildings, which exacerbates the suffering of forced displacement. He noted that more and more Gaza residents are being forced to leave their homes only to follow roads that lead nowhere. And U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio said Tuesday that Qatar is the only country capable of mediating on Gaza. Speaking ahead of his trip to Doha, Rubio said the Qatari government must decide whether it wants to assume a mediating role after last week's events, stressing that it is the only country in the world capable of ending what is happening in Gaza through negotiations. The European Commission is expected to impose new sanctions on the Zionist entity due to its continued genocide against the Palestinian people in the Gaza Strip. In statements to journalists on Tuesday, the spokesperson for the European Commission said that the commissioners will adopt a package of measures against the Zionist entity, including the suspension of certain trade provisions in agreements between the European Union and the entity.
Tomorrow, the college meeting, the commissioners will adopt a package of measures concerning Israel, specifically a commission proposal to suspend certain provisions of the Euro-Mediterranean Association Agreement between the European Union and Israel.
And Luxembourg's Prime Minister Luc Frieden and Foreign Minister Javier Bettel told a parliamentary committee that the country intends to recognize the state of Palestine. Media reports said that a final decision is expected later this month during the UN General Assembly in New York in coordination with countries including Belgium. The move comes after months of hesitation by Luxembourg and amid mounting European calls to end the genocide in Gaza. UN High Commissioner for Human Rights Volker Turk on Tuesday called the Israeli attack on Qatar a shocking breach of international law and an assault on regional peace and stability. Opening an urgent session of the UN Human Rights Council in Geneva, Turk said the strike in Doha undermines the integrity of mediation and negotiation processes worldwide.
President, Israel's strike on negotiators in Doha on the 9th of September was a shocking breach of international law, an assault on regional peace and stability, and a blow against the integrity of mediation and negotiating processes around the world. The attack violated the right to life under international human rights law and the principles of international humanitarian law. Targeting parties engaged in internationally supported mediation on its territory undermines Qatar's key role as a facilitator and peace broker. It is an attack on global efforts to resolve conflicts peacefully.
And the Arab group at the UN Human Rights Council has strongly condemned the Israeli attack on the Qatari capital Doha. Speaking on behalf of the group during an emergency session in Geneva, Algeria's permanent representative to the UN office, Rachid Bildahan, said the assault constitutes a heinous crime that history will record among Israel's long list of violations. He added that the attack represents a grave breach of international law, the UN Charter, and established international norms.
The Israeli occupation's attack on the Qatari capital Doha constitutes a heinous crime that will be recorded in history's long list of violations and atrocities. It represents a grave breach of international law, the United Nations Charter, and established international norms. The Arab group strongly condemns this blatant aggression, which follows previous attacks on sovereign Arab states such as Syria, Lebanon, and Yemen. It also warns against the consequences of this escalation, which risks plunging the region into chaos and threatens its security and stability.
Algeria's permanent representative to the UN office in Geneva, speaking on behalf of the Arab group, strongly condemned the attack on Qatar and affirmed the group's full solidarity with the country.
The Arab group expresses its deep concern over the targeting of a mediating state that is striving for peace, an act that undermines mediation efforts aimed at ending the bloodshed in Gaza and constitutes a flagrant violation of international charters and norms. The group also reaffirms its full solidarity with the state of Qatar and its commitment to ensuring its security and the safety of its citizens.
Speaking on behalf of the Arab group, Bildahan also urged the international community to act swiftly to end Israeli violations and to enforce respect for international law, the UN Charter, and relevant international resolutions.
The logic of war that the occupation seeks to impose on the region has been encouraged by the continued escape from accountability. Accordingly, the Arab group calls for the international community to take urgent action to put an end to these violations and to enforce respect for international law, the United Nations Charter, and the relevant resolutions of international legitimacy.
The Israeli warplanes carried out more than a dozen airstrikes on the port of Hodeidah in western Yemen, according to media outlets close to the Houthi movement. In a post on social media, Houthi military spokesman Yahya Sariya confirmed that their air defenses intercepted Israeli aircraft and forced some formations to withdraw from Yemeni airspace before carrying out their attacks, noting that the group's forces succeeded in preventing them from penetrating deeper into the country. The A3+ group, made up of Algeria, Somalia, Sierra Leone, and Guyana, urged regional parties to foster conditions for dialogue to advance the peace process in Yemen, emphasizing respect for the country's sovereignty, unity, and territorial integrity. Speaking at a UN Security Council session on Yemen, Abu Bakr Dahir Usman, Somalia's representative in A3+, Spokesperson called on all sides to show maximum restraint and avoid unilateral actions that could jeopardize peace efforts.
This dialogue, compromise and inclusion is the only path toward a permanent solution, an alleviation of suffering that the Yemeni people are enduring. On the security level, Mr. President, our group expresses its deep concern over the fragile and deteriorating security situation in Yemen and the region. So we reiterate our call for cooperating efforts for appeasement and for the security of civilians, and our group notes with caution and optimism that there have been 2 new attacks in the Red Sea district since the last report to this council.
Meanwhile, the spokesperson for the A3+ group, Abu Bakr, warned of the negative consequences of the ongoing Israeli aggression on Gaza, its impact on the entire region, and on peace efforts in Yemen.
We reaffirm our call for an immediate and unconditional ceasefire in Gaza, noting that there has been no genuine progress in peace efforts in Yemen. We stress the need to prevent further escalation of conflict and its impact on stability in the region and beyond. We also emphasize the importance of addressing the root causes of these regional tensions and encourage the intensification of diplomatic efforts, which are preferred by all.
Moving on to other news, the Moroccan Human Rights Association has warned of deepening authoritarianism and the widening assault on economic, social, cultural, environmental, and human rights in the country due to escalating repression, political trials and arrests, and the adoption of tailor-made laws. In a statement issued Monday, on the occasion of the 18th International Day of Democracy, the Moroccan Association for Human Rights stressed that the Moroccan regime engages in electoral corruption to engineer tailor-made elected institutions.
Authoritarianism has deepened in Morocco, with growing restrictions on fundamental freedoms, especially freedom of opinion, expression, and association, and tighter control over public space. Repressive methods have become entrenched as preparations for the upcoming elections follow the same flawed approach, and the Ministry of Interior long linked to electoral corruption and the creation of tailor-made institutions serving private interests. This distorted Makhzen democracy has reached a state of decay and disintegration, eroding citizens' trust.
The association also called for the adoption of a democratic constitution, the protection of freedom of opinion and expression, the release of all political detainees, and firm action against corruption. It pledged to continue its struggle to build a democratic system that guarantees human rights and secures dignity for Moroccans.
We call for the establishment of a democratic constitution, both in form and in substance, that respects the right of the Moroccan people to self-determination at all levels, recognizes the universality and divisibility of human rights, and upholds their human values. We also demand the protection and strengthening of the right of freedom of opinion and expression, the right to access information, and an end to all form of harassment against activists, journalists, and students, as well as an end to the targeted censorship against them. Furthermore, we call for the guarantee of the freedom of assembly and peaceful protest and the lifting of restrictions on social media platforms.
Poland announced that its State Protection Service has neutralized a drone flying over sensitive government sites. Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk said on the platform X that authorities had arrested 2 Belarusian nationals. This incident comes after recent airspace breaches last week along the Russian-Polish border. And Russia warned European countries against proceeding with any plans to use frozen Russian assets to support Ukraine, threatening to pursue anyone involved in their confiscation until the end of the century. Dmitry Medvedev, the former Russian president and current deputy chairman of the Russian Security Council, wrote on Telegram that Russia would pursue European Union countries through all possible means in international and national courts, and even outside of the legal framework, if they infringe upon the frozen Russian assets. The Russian Foreign Ministry said Moscow hopes to hold a new round of talks with US officials this fall to address outstanding issues between the two countries. Deputy Foreign Minister Sergei Rybakov said that the two sides desire to avoid a failure that could hinder tangible results as the reason for the delay in arranging a new meeting, according to TASS. He noted that there are technical and scheduling issues, while denying that these were the main reasons for the delay. And U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio said that President Donald Trump is doing everything he can to end the war in Ukraine. Speaking at a press conference, Rubio pointed to the possibility of a meeting between the U.S. president and Ukrainian president next week in New York as part of Trump's efforts to mediate a peace agreement that would also involve Russian president. With this, ladies and gentlemen, our program has come to an end. Thanks for watching. Have a great night.